Okay, so let's get into our discussion for today, which is the user experience. So what makes a website successful? And after all that talking, I need to take a sip of my tea so for my throat. So the answer is how a user perceives it. You know, we unknowingly pretty much ask the same the same set of questions every time we go to a new website. Does this website give me value? Is it easy to use? And is it pleasant to use? These are the questions that run through the minds of visitors as they interact with our websites as well, and they form the basis of their decision on whether or not they're going to become a regular user of our site. So think about it. If Facebook was designed and it did not give a user value, it wasn't easy to use, and it wasn't pleasant to use, we'd probably still all be on MySpace right now. But, the users of Facebook answered yes to all of those questions. So the user experience design is all about striving to make your user answer yes to that. You want that website to give them value. You want it to be easy for them to use, and you also want it to be pleasant for them to use. So I have a, pretty deep, crazy graphic right here that I found online. But, what is the user experience? And you've probably heard the acronyms like UX and UI thrown around. And in a lot of cases, they're used interchangeably and incorrectly. So it's kind of hard to distinguish, what the difference between the two is. But the user experience, which is abbreviated UX, is how a person feels when they are interfacing with a system. So a system could be a website. It could be a web application, so like an app on your phone. It could be desktop software, such as the Adobe Creative Suite. And in modern contexts, it's generally denoted by some form of the human-computer interaction. So those who work on UX, they study and evaluate how users feel about a system, looking at things such as the ease of use, the perception of the value of the system, utility, efficiency in performing the tasks that they're trying to do, and so forth. So UX designers also look at subsystems and processes within a system. So for example, they might study the checkout process of an e-commerce site such as Amazon to see whether users find the process of buying products from the website easy and pleasant compared to many other disciplines, particularly web-based systems. UX is pretty new. Back in the early 2000s and the 90s, we definitely did not think about the user experience when we were designing websites. So why is UX important? Nowadays, with so much emphasis on user-centered design, describing and justifying the importance of designing and enhancing the user experience seems almost unnecessary. We could simply say, it's important because it deals with our users' needs, the end. And everybody would probably be really satisfied with that answer. But before our clients and we understood the value of, user-centered design, we basically made design decisions based on two things: what we thought was awesome and what our clients wanted to see. So this was our outdated process. There was a design decision, and then did the client like it? No. Okay, then just revise it until we got a yes, and then we were done. Nobody stopped and thought about the user during all of that. We just wanted to make sure the client was happy so we could get our paycheck and move on. And we weren't doing anybody, any help by acting that way and by designing that way. So we built interaction based on what we thought was working at the time. And we also really designed for ourselves. We were like, this looks so cool. Look at all of these rollover graphics. Who cares that it takes 15 minutes for the web page to load? That's how we designed in the 90s. The focus was on aesthetics and the brand with little to no thought of how the people who used our website would feel about it. There was no science behind what we did. We did it because the results looked good and because they were creative, or so we thought, because if we look back now, they definitely weren't, and because that was what our clients wanted. The bigger, the better, the louder, the more, think of all the dancing babies that were on those websites back in the day. So this decade has witnessed, thank goodness, a transformation of the web. Not only has the web become more ubiquitous, the web has at least 1.5 billion users globally, and that statistic is from 2008. But websites have become very complex and feature-rich. To be effective, they must also have a great user experience. And this is the biggest part. A lot of people are accessing websites on mobile devices. So they are, no longer sitting at home on either, their Wi-Fi or, their cable modems or DSL. I mean, some people still are using dial-up. And the thing is that you need to be aware that somebody who has a mobile device, your website needs to load quickly on their mobile phone if they are not home and they don't have, LTE coverage where they are. In order for us to have universal access, we need to think about the importance of accessibility. So that's not only for people with special requirements, such as for screen readers and non-traditional input devices, but we really need to think about people who don't have a broadband connection or who might have an older cell phone or an older tablet. So with all of the sweeping changes, the websites that have consistently stood out are the ones that are pleasant to use. And the driving factor of how we build websites today has become the user experience that we want to give to those people. So what situations would benefit from UX design? It's really easy to say that every business could benefit from this, having their website evaluated and looking at the design of the user experience. And it would be pretty hard for you to argue against that. But as we all know, we don't have unlimited resources, and, companies don't have unlimited resources, and we don't live in a perfect world. So we need to prioritize and identify the areas that stand to gain the most from the UX design and from having a UX designer. And those would be complex systems, startups, projects that have an okay budget, and then projects that also have a longer time frame. So when I think of a complex system, the most complex website I can think of right off the top of my head is Amazon.com every single time. There is so many things that can be bought on Amazon. It's such a multifaceted website. There's just so much going on, and it's an e-commerce site. So it definitely benefits from having a good user experience and probably from having a UX designer on staff. There are so many tasks that a user, can do on that site. And that site needs to be perceived as being valuable, pleasant, and efficient. If I'm on Amazon and I am trying to buy a specific type of Bob's Red Mill flour because I can't find it in the stores anywhere and I can only ever find it on Amazon, this is a true story. If I went to try to put it into my shopping cart and then I navigated over to my shopping cart and it's not there, that would be very annoying to me as a user. And I might try to put it in 1 or 2 times, but if I keep trying to do it and it's just not working, I'm going to go somewhere else. And I'm going to end up assuming that this website does not have it together. And I probably don't want to put my credit card information in there. So designers risk really big losses in revenue if they neglect the user experience. I mean, if you got to a website and it looked really, really shady and you were going to buy something online, would you feel confident giving them your credit card? Probably not. So there's a good reason that e-commerce sites have a user experience designer on staff. And that's why it's worth it to them to have that UX designer. The same thing can go for startups. If you are a startup that has a pretty okay budget and you are, you're not out in the market yet, the perfect situation for you is to possibly, go either hire a UX designer for your staff, or to go with a company that has a UX designer on their staff and have them do your design for you, because you only get one chance, they tell you, at a first impression. So you need to come out of the gate strong. There are so many startups these days, there's so many websites out there, there's so many e-commerce sites, there's so many sites for everything. It's important that you start out strong and you make a good first impression. Then we also have projects that have, an okay budget. So those would be, smaller agencies that then work for smaller, medium-sized businesses. And those agencies would probably benefit from having a UX designer on their staff, because now when they go out looking for new business with those smaller and medium-sized companies, chances are good that those businesses don't have a UX designer, and that's just one more thing that you can offer to them. We can rebuild this website for you. We can up your traffic. We can make sure that, you're going to be ranked in Google. When people search, they will find you, because we have a person on staff that can do this for you. And yes, you might have a web designer, but if they aren't a UX designer, what we can do is we can design your user experience, and when we get it exactly how you want it, we can pass it off to your web designer, and they can keep your site updated with the minor changes that you may need. So, it's just really good. That's another reason why, agencies should staff a user experience designer, because it makes them more marketable to the businesses that they're trying to get business from. And then we have projects with a longer time frame. So, there's a simple logic that if you add a cog to the wheel, it will extend your time frame on something. Time must be allotted for the user experience design. It's one more thing that you need to do. So you need to put that into your time frame. So UX designers could, in theory, shorten timelines by taking on some of the tasks that were traditionally assigned to web designers and developers. And this could potentially save time and cost in the revision phase by having addressed the user issues right from the get-go. So, things to know about UX design, just kind of in a nutshell. UX design is an amazing discipline, but it cannot and it will not accomplish certain things. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all link. What works for Amazon might not work for Target.com, which might not work for Canvas, the website that our classes run through. We can't just design a user experience and then expect that we can replicate it from one website to the other. User experience is different between websites, and it needs to be tailored to whatever the goals, values, production process, and the products of that specific website are. It can't be directly assessed with traditional metric links, so you can't determine the effectiveness of a user experience design based solely on statistics such as, how many page views you've gotten, if they're, what your bounce rates or your conversion rates are. You can make assumptions and you can ask the users for anecdotal evidence, but you can't really install an app, or at least not yet, that automatically will record the user experience statistic. I mean, it would be nice if you could, because it would make it a lot easier on a lot of us, but unfortunately at this point we can't. And it's not the same thing as usability link. So user experience and usability have pretty much become synonymous, but these two fields are actually clearly distinct. UX, the user experience addresses how a user feels when they are using a system, and then usability is about the user friendliness and or efficiency of the interface. So they seem similar, but they're actually not. All right, so now that we've discussed the UX, in depth, what we normally hear or see together is UX/UI, and UI is the user interface. So User interface is the means by which the user and a computer system interact. So in particular, the use of input devices and software. So even though it's an older and more practice field, the question of what is user interface design is still kind of difficult to answer based on the amount of misinterpretations of it. So again, while UX is a conglomeration of tasks that are focused on optimizing the product for effective and enjoyable use, the UI design is its complement. So it's the look, the feel, the presentation, and interactivity of a product. But like UX is easily and often confused by the industries that employ UI designers, to the extent that different job posts will often refer to the profession as completely different things. And if you've ever looked on Indeed, that's why I say if you've ever seen UX, UI, without fail, there's probably 15 jobs on Indeed.com right now that are for UX/UI designers. And really what they are looking for in some cases is a graphic designer or just a web programmer. So it's, you know, it's people who are even hiring for these positions get the definition of the position wrong all the time. So again, if you look at those job posts, you'll find misinterpretations of the profession that are akin to graphic design. Sometimes they even extend to branding design or even front-end development. I've seen UX, UI designers, and what they want is somebody with PHP and JavaScript experience. I'm like, that's not what this is. So, you know, you'll mostly find descriptions. You know, if you look at the expert definitions of the user interface, you will mostly find descriptions that are in part identical to user experience, and they might even refer to the same structural techniques. So which one of these is right? And the thing is that, you know, neither. They're both close in some ways. User experience design, user interface design is a multifaceted and challenging role. It's responsible for the transference of a product's development, research, content, and layout into an attractive, guiding, and responsive experience for the user. It is also a field that, unlike UX, is a strictly digital profession. So, what are the UI designer's responsibilities? The look and feel, customer analysis, design research, branding and graphic development, the user guides and the storyline, and then also you have the responsiveness and interactivity, so prototyping, interactivity and animation, adaptation to all device screen sizes, and implementation with developers. So as a visual and interactive designer, the UI role is crucial to any digital interface and for customers a key element to trusting a brand. So while the brand itself is never solely the responsibility of the UI designer, its translation to the product is. So, you know, it's the look and feel. Like when you go to Target.com, you know you're in the right place because there's a look and a feel to Target.com. When you go to Amazon.com, you know you're in the right place. You know, that is all the UI designer. So in conclusion, user interface design is responsible for the transference of a brand's strengths and visual assets to a product's interface as to best enhance the user experience. So they help each other. You know, even though we say they're so separate, and they do help each other. User interface design is a process of visually guiding the user through a product's interface via interactive elements and across all sizes and platforms. The user interface design is a digital field which includes responsibilities for cooperation and work with developers or code, or in analogical terms, UI design produces a product, you know, skin, a product's visual graphic presentation, senses a product's reactivity and interactivity in response to a user's input or different display environments. And then we have makeup, a product's guides, hints, and directives that visually lead users through their experience. All right. So we're going to do two things right now, and then we'll take a break. First off, if you guys are at home, I'm going to copy and paste this URL into the chat for you. Let me just pull open my chat window for this website, and then I will also pull open the link for this second website. There we go. So what I want you to do is I just want you to kind of poke around on these two websites and let me know, what the different problems that you're running into are. And is this a UX problem, or do you think it's a UI problem? So the first one is the Davis Mega Maze, and the second is for keithsfarm.com. So for both of these, just take a couple of minutes and let me know what you think the problem is. And I am going to open up the websites on my end. And there we go. So take until about 1:05 to look at those two websites, and then we will come back and talk about them for a bit. What I will say as far as the Davis Mega Maze site is the biggest problem I brought up to them a couple of weeks ago, and that's how I got this idea to look at these sites. I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that, X, Y, and Z is happening on your website. They were like, oh, thanks, we'll fix it right away. And I ended up checking yesterday because I didn't know if I would need to find a new link for everyone to double check. And it hasn't been fixed. So they clearly are not going to fix that right away. Well, you guys are still continuing to look around, and any of your thoughts that you have, just type them right in the chat if you want. I am going to just grab a quick glass of water and we can take a look at those sites. Okay, so let's look at the Davis Mega Maze one first. When we first start to look at it, it looks like this seems like a pretty cool place. I've never been. I meant to go this fall, and we never made it there, which was kind of a bummer. So I'm gonna have to go next year. But what they do is they have these huge corn mazes, and I'm in Massachusetts, so we have the Red Sox, and Big Papi retired this year, so they did a whole big corn maze that looked like Big Papi, which was pretty cool, but I didn't get a chance to get over there and do it. But what I noticed when I was visiting the site was, all right, I did want to go and I wanted to get tickets. So when I went to the tickets page, it kept bringing me to the link for plan, and at first I was like, well, wait a minute, am I in the right spot? How to plan my visit and everything else. And then I was like, okay, this tells me a little bit about the tickets. It said, click here to purchase tickets online. This is actually working now, but it wasn't working before. It just kept bringing you in this loop where you ended up back at the plan page. And it took me a minute to find on this page how much tickets were, the prices over here. So, you know, it was a little bit difficult for me to get the information to know I was in the right spot. So I let them know. I said, you know, do you mean to have this link here for tickets? And they were like, oh, we actually need to fix that because the tickets link was supposed to bring you directly to this click here to purchase tickets online. And you can see in their website, they still haven't fixed it because it still links to their plan page. And if you click on the drop down for tickets, that still brings you to the exact page you are. Ours brings you to the page you are. And it's like, I understand that that information might be on this page, but it's a little bit confusing because you think that you need to navigate to a different page for these. So, you know, I think that the layout of the navigation is a little bit difficult. And now, do you guys think that that's a UX problem, like a user experience problem, or a user interface problem? And I'm not sure if you, I know that that Dallas had to run out to pick up his daughter, so I'm not sure if he's back. All right, so Kay says, oh, you're both back. All right, great. So you both say that it's a user interface problem, and I would agree with you there, that that's a user interface problem. You know, the interface is not working the way it's supposed to work. So, oh, okay, you have 30 minutes. All right, that's great. So, yeah, I would agree with you. You know, you expect the interface to work a certain way, and then it's not. And then we've also got online tickets up here. This link appears to work. But it brings me to this different website, which looks nothing like the website I was on. And this is where I need to pay. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. I don't know if I want to give them, yeah, it looks a little sketchy. Exactly. It looks a little bit sketchy. So, you know, that's also, you know, that would fall under our user experience. If I think that the, you know, that the checkout is a little bit sketchy, I'm not going to put my credit card information in there, and you are going to lose funds because of this. Now, I do know this place is reputable, so I don't want them to like sue me for like slander or something. They are actually reputable. Everybody in New England goes there. But yeah, I mean, just something that if you were coming from out of town or from out of state and you were like, hey, we're going on vacation in Massachusetts, let's go do one of those corn mazes, and you found this, you might be a little bit skeptical to put your credit card information in. So, you know, just a couple of thoughts when you're designing your sites. And then next we have Keats Farm, which this looks a little bit better because you can see what, let me show on the slide. They must have found out I was showing this because this is what their website used to look like. It was a disaster. And it looks as though they have, they've redesigned it a bit. They have one large picture, which is nice. Let's see what happens if we go to the Fun in the Fall page, maybe. Oops. Fun in the Fall. That didn't bring me anywhere. All right. Wait, nope. Fall. Oh, Fall me. All right. So it gets a little bit crazy on the other pages. We have links all over the place to some prepared food items. There's a link down here for farm stand offering, but there's no rhyme or reason to where things are located on this page. There's a lot of information. Let's see, we've got the Christmas tree gallery. I don't know if that's actually going to bring me anywhere. All right, so just pictures, but if I want to buy trees, I don't know. Oh, tree farm. But you can't click on just the main, and you can see images are running on top of navigation. It's a little bit, yeah, the UX is very bad on this site. And, you know, I feel bad. It's probably, they're a mom and pop shop, and I'm sure this is the first website they've ever created, and you know, somebody's cousin makes this website for them. But, you know, these are the things where it's like, you know, if you want to look professional, it might be worth your while to have your site designed professionally to begin with, and then, maybe you can pass it off for minor changes, just a couple of image changes or some copy changes to that person's cousin, So this is why it's important to learn web design, I will say, because you may think I'm just going to have a job as a graphic designer, but there could be times where you might need to make adjustments or copy changes or little, changing the background color on a site, switching out a logo. And if you're able to do that, you're going to be so much more marketable as a designer. All right, so two clearly different websites that have two different feels, for better or for worse, we can say, for what's going on those sites. So why don't we, before we get into wireframing and discussing all the things that have to do with our assignment, why don't we take a 5-minute break? We'll come back at 1:15, and then we'll get into the wireframing, the concept page, and the sitemap for this week. Sound good? All right. So I will see you guys it'll be about 1:15 my time, so 5 minutes from your time. Okay, so are we all back? Let's see, close this out. All right, so hopefully everyone, all right, great. I was gonna say, hopefully everyone's back and you can still hear me. So I'm assuming if you're answering me that you can. Awesome. All right, so the first thing let's talk about is wireframing. So we need to make a wireframe for our website this week. So wireframing is, what is it basically? Wireframing is an important step in any screen design process. It primarily allows you to define the information hierarchy of your design, which will then make it easier for you to plan the layout according to how you want your user to process the information. So it's basically like an architectural blueprint. You need to see it in two-dimensional black and white diagrams before you understand how to build an actual house. So similarly, for a website, you can't start building the pixels in Photoshop of how you want to mock it up or writing the blocks of code if you don't know where the information is going to go. So at a deeper level, a wireframe is also very useful in determining how your user will interact with your interface. So for example, wireframes can contain various states of buttons or even menu behaviors. So when we are designing our website, we need to think about this type of a hierarchy: our header, which is the first thing that we want our users to see, the body, which is the content of our website, and then the footer, which is typically our less important stuff. And every website follows this type of a format. And there's a reason behind that. It's what we're used to seeing. So we aren't going to reinvent the wheel today, which is good. And what this is this is the box model. Okay, this can get a little bit confusing looking at this box model. So I actually have another graphic I'm going to show you as well. But basically, when you are coding your website, this right here is the layout that you want. So we have these elements called divs. And a div is, in essence, a container. Think of it as either those nesting bowls that have the covers and they all fit inside of each other, and then the biggest bowl, all the little bowls with the covers fit in, and then you put the cover on top and it holds it all together. That's kind of what a div is. It's the container for all of the items in your website. And you can put different items inside of that container, and you can put different divs inside of a div. So I like to think of it as, kind of Tupperware containers or nesting bowls in my brain, and it starts to make more sense. So at the top, of our div, we have one main div, which is our wrapper. So think of that like, the encompasses, wraps around everything. And inside of that wrapper, we have our header, which normally, and I don't like this example, normally our navigation would be contained within our header. And then we have an aside section, which would be our sidebar. So this is a sidebar right here. And then we have our main content, which can either be a section tag or a main tag. You'll see me using the main tag just because in my brain I'm like main content, main tag, main content, main tag, but they're both the same thing. And then we have our footer. So because we're visual people, I'm going to show you this example instead. And let me just zoom in a little bit. So when you go into Dreamweaver and you create a new document, it's going to add in this doc type HTML and this head. And I can show you that actually right now. I did want to get into Dreamweaver today. It's still playing the click the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new site just so I can show you the structure and the structure of the box model. And then we'll kind of look at it, as we create it. So you've got your head area up here, which is kind of like your clouds, which will contain the links to your CSS code. It'll contain titles. It'll contain any SEO keywords, you know, Google font links or Typekit links. It'll contain descriptions about the page. That's all just floating in the stratosphere up here. Then this is where that div wrapper comes in, which is what we were just looking at in Acrobat. Did I close it? I probably closed it, didn't I? There we go. So then we get this div wrapper, which contains all of the pieces of our house. So, you know, we might have our header section up here, which will have our navigation in it. And then we have these different divs. So, you know, this div might be the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th floor of the house. This div might be the 4th floor. This one's the 3rd floor. 4th floor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sorry. I was going backwards thinking like you're up on the 5th floor, but it would be section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4, like the floors of the house. And then you might have another section underneath, and then you would have your footer right here, which would be like your sidewalk. So this is just kind of a visual to try to, you know, wrap your mind around creating this box model. So every time you're in Dreamweaver, I do apologize because I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. The first time you get in there, and this is something I will go over in more detail tomorrow, even if you are just going to test something, you should really get into the habit of defining a site. The reason why is if you forget to define a site and you just hit new HTML, none of your images will be linked. It will be utter chaos when you go to upload your site. Take it from me. There have been times where I have forgotten in the past, many moons ago. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes I forget to define my site, and I get going and I'm like, wait a minute, why isn't this working? Why are all of my links broken? It's because I didn't start out by defining a site. So that we'll go over this with the midterm as well. You always need to define a site. So to do that is pretty easy. You just go up into site, new site. And today I'm just going to say, I'm going to call this the box model. And I'm going to browse to where I want to put this, which will be in my week 1 folder. Yeah, I'll just choose week 1 live session. Yes. Choose that folder. And then under advanced settings and local info, I'm going to choose a default images folder because most of your sites will have images. And I'm just going to click this images folder and choose that and then save. And you'll notice, but I don't have a web page yet. I still have to make an HTML page. So I'm going to hit new document, HTML, and it's going to be HTML5. And I'm just going to click create. And that puts that file right into my site, but I still need to save it. So I'm going to do a file, save as, and you always want to name your homepage index.html. I'm going to name this box model as though it's page 2 because I clearly already have an index.html in this folder and I don't want to screw anything up. And I'm just going to hit save. All right, so going back to my Photoshop document, up here we have our header, and then I have my, which has all of these items in it, and then I have my div wrapper. So that's the next thing I need to make, whether I'm looking at that JPEG or I'm looking at this, this example of the box model. They're both basically the same thing. So this is where that DOM panel comes in, and you'll notice I have my header right here, and then I have my body. So I want to add in a wrapper inside of my body because my body is my whole house that I'm trying to build is inside of the body of this website. See how my body tag is right up here, and underneath that tag is the wrapper, that's how I know the hierarchy I need to follow. And you may be wondering, what does this have to do with my wireframe? You really need to understand the hierarchy of a website before you can start developing your wireframe of your website. So it's kind of good that we're going right here and we're looking at this box model and understanding where things in our site should go when we are then creating a mock-up for in a wireframe for that site. So this is that DOM panel. And again, we're going to go over this way more tomorrow, but I just want to do a quick example. And this is that plus sign that I was telling you about. So if you hover over the plus sign, it tells you that you can click to add an element, or apparently you can hit the space bar now. That's new. So I'm just going to click, and I want to insert a child because I want the tag that or the element to go inside of this body tag, which is right here in the code. So I'm going to insert a child, and it's going to be a div, and I'm going to name it with wrapper. So hashtag wrapper. I'm going to hit enter. And you'll notice it added in div ID is equal to wrapper, and it says content for new div tag goes here. And it added that, that text up there. So then after I add my wrapper in, I need to start looking at the different things that I'm going to put into the wrapper. Well, what's the next thing that needs to go in? My header. You know, my header is what's next in this, this visual, and the header is what's next in my PDF. So I'm going to go back into Dreamweaver, and I'm going to, again, do a child because I want all of these elements to be offset underneath and inside my div wrapper. So I'm going to insert a child, and this one, it's going to auto populate the word div, but I'm going to start typing in head, and it'll show me header. I'm going to hit enter. And then what I want to do is I want to, again, one more child because I want to put my navigation inside of it. So I'm going to start doing NA, and you'll notice NAV stands for nav. Nav stands for navigation. Yes, NAV stands for nav. All right, so already I've created this entire wrapper right here. I've created my header section, and I put where I want my navigation to go inside of my header section. And it really only took me about 4 seconds to do that. So let's go back over to this JPEG. Let's say I want to make a main area and put div 1, div 2, and div 3 inside of that main area. So I'm going to go back into Dreamweaver, and I'm going to click on where it says header right here, and I'm going to kind of close it up. And what I want is my main section is going to be on the same hierarchy as my header section. So I don't want to insert a child because that'll offset it inside of my header. I just want to insert an element after my header. So I'm going to insert that element, and I'm going to type main, and there we go. And you can see based on where it's placed that these are on the same level as each other. You know, one is higher than the other, but you know, they're on the same hierarchy level. So inside of my main section, I'm going to make, whoops, wrong item. I'm going to make three divs, and I'm going to name them. Instead of section, I'm going to name main 1, main 2, and main 3. So let's do that real quick. So I'm going to insert. Now, do you think, all right, based on what I just did, if I want to put it inside of my main section, do you think I need to insert after, or do you think I need to insert a child to put those divs inside of my main? Child, you are correct. All right, good job. Exactly. So I'm going to insert a child, and this one's going to be called div, and I'm going to name it dot main 1. Then I'm going to insert after because all of my divs are going to be on the same, kind of the same level with each other. So I'm just going to say insert after. This is going to be main 2. And insert after, and this one's going to be dot main 3. And there's a difference. which we will get into between hashtags and periods later on. That's just a little bit, oh, no problem, Dallas. Okay, great. I hope you can make it tomorrow. Yes, definitely log in and see if you can watch the rest later. All right, so I have my main section right there. Now, I don't think that this one shows a sidebar or an aside section, so I'm going to create an aside section. So, Kate, you're left. Do you think when I create my aside section, I need to make a child, insert a child, or insert after? After, correct. Awesome. So I'm going to start typing in aside. There we go. And inside of this, I'm going to put in two childs. I'm going to do aside 1 and insert after for another div. And I'm going to do this one aside 2. Okay. And then what do we have last? Last thing we got to do on both of these is, I don't know if you'll be able to see. What's the next element I need to add? It's the last, it's technically kind of the last element. The footer, exactly. So the footer always goes at the bottom. So once again, I'm going to close up my aside section and I'm going to insert after, and I'll start to type and it auto populates footer for me, and that content goes there. And you'll notice when you add items in through the DOM panel like this, it's going to add in all of this text for you, but it's kind of good because you can see where the different sections are. So it's like new content for div tag goes here, new content for div tag goes here. So there's a lot of stuff, but all you need to do, and we'll get into this more, is you can just, you know, delete out this text and put in your own text. But at least you can see where the items go. You know, your footer's here. We have aside 1, aside 2 div. We have the main div here, main div here, main div here. We have our navigation tag up here. We have the header, which wraps around it. And then this is the actual div tag, and it's at the bottom. The content for new div tab for the wrapper, for some reason, is all the way at the bottom. So this is a good visual, I think, to see how to create the box model and how quick you can create the box model in Dreamweaver. So this is the layout that you should have for every single website. You should have, you know, a header section, which has your navigation. You should have a main section. You may choose to have a sidebar. You might not always have a sidebar, but you should definitely have a main section or a section, and you should always have a footer. And it should all be inside of your wrapper. And if you're wondering what's inside what, if you notice, like when I click on the wrapper, it shows me all of the items. It selects and highlights all of the items that are inside of it. If I click on the header, it selects the items visually for me that are inside of it. This is actually kind of new, this interface. This time around, it selects, you know, the item. So it's a pretty good visual to see what's going on. It selects it in the code as well. I think that that's a lot easier to see. And you may notice I'm in standard mode. There's standard or developer. I can show you developer mode, and it's very code-like. It's like, it's very, you know, not, if you've never been in, you know, a coding program or Dreamweaver, it might seem a little bit too much to be in developer. Standard is like, oh, look, there's, you know, items with buttons I can click. You know, that just kind of makes you feel a little bit better. All right, so let's get back into our slideshow. So that's why I wanted to show you that, because I think you should have a good understanding of how a website should be laid out before you try to lay it out by creating its wireframe. So, you know, again, the wireframe is important because it allows you, the designer, to plan your layout and interface without being distracted by colors, typeface choices, or even copy. So when I see your wireframes for your assignments, they should resemble this. I mean, you don't have to put header, body, and footer, but it should be black and white. There shouldn't be any logos. There shouldn't be a specific font that, you shouldn't be making font choices, and there shouldn't be any color. I'm going to share some of these websites with you, but this is pretty cool. So you can actually check out this website. It's called, I think it's like a Tumblr or something, but it's called I Heart Wireframes, and you'll be able to look at, different wireframes and how different designers have handled the whole wireframing process. And I think it's pretty cool to look at other designers' work. And then you can also check out Wirefy. It's actually a app that lets you wireframe any website. So it loads onto your browser why can't I see my bookmarks? View. Oh, I always forget how to do this. I hit like I'll have to fix that after. I always hit like a quick key and then all my bookmarks go away and I'm like, show bookmarks. Where is that again? Bookmarks. Show bookmarks. There we go. All right. And it adds that Wirefy right up into your browser link. So it'll show you the Wirefy of any live site. So if I click on it here, I don't know how well it works with Google Docs, but this is basically the wireframe of Google Docs, which is not much to look at, but it's pretty cool. Go back in. There we go. All right, so you might want to check it out, different websites. And where are we? There we go. All right, so Kay, you are the only one left as of right now. So can you name this website based on looking at just its wireframe? Let's see if you get it. Chances are good you've probably been on this site today. You are correct. It is Canvas. So that is the wireframe to Canvas. If we look, you can see where, nothing is labeled, and that Wirefy doesn't label things. But you can kind of see where the sidebar is. You can see where the different elements in the middle are, where the links are. It's pretty cool. So if you continually observe what other designers or sites are doing for their wireframes, you'll kind of slowly get a picture in your mind of how a wireframe helps to organize the information on the screen. So there are a couple of steps in designing your wireframe process. Design is pretty organic. We know that, and different designers approach wireframing and its translation in different ways. You have to find the process that brings out your own strengths and that you're most comfortable with. So most people use the Adobe Creative Suite to wireframe in. So one question is, why is Illustrator a good tool for wireframing? You can have styles, so you can save type and object styles and reuse them. It's easy to modify, move, or scale multiple objects, and it affords you an easy transition to Photoshop. You can, again, you can use Illustrator, you can use InDesign. InDesign is similar in its strengths to Illustrator because it has a strong typographic style control, there's strong master pages support, and you can make interactive prototypes even in InDesign. These are things going forward, not things we will be doing this mod. I personally like to use InDesign. It's just a personal preference that I have, and I will show you an example of a wireframe of my site. You might want to set a grid. All web design should really adhere to a grid. So a grid system obviously is a structured and simple way to lay out elements. This example uses Illustrator, but the steps can be applied to any of your tools. So first you want to set a document size. So for example, we may use 1280 by 900. And you can actually download, and I'll provide these links to you, but you can download these templates for grid for you and bring them into either bring them into Illustrator or into InDesign when you are creating your wireframe. So that might be something that you would want to consider. And you can adjust how many how big of a grid you need, etc., in that site. So you can determine your layout with boxes. I'm going to put a logo in the top left-hand corner. My navigation's going to go here. I might have a banner or hero image in the center. Then I may have 3 featured items underneath it, and then my footer. So it's literally the bare bones structure of your website. So that's what you would start with. You have your grid, then you add in those boxes so you can see where you want to place things. Next, what you would do is, you're not choosing a font at this point, but you might want to start giving the type on the page some hierarchy. So maybe you're going to have a headline at the top, so you'll make that font a little bit bolder and bigger, so visually you can see where headlines will go, as opposed to sub-headlines or even like H3 headlines, which are the smallest of the headlines that you would use. And then next, what you would do is you're going to start to fine-tune with grayscale. So you can use the full spectrum of grayscale to help you to determine the visual strengths of the elements without having to pick a color palette. But it might actually help you to pick your colors later on based on this, this grayscale, this fine-tuned grayscale wireframe. So you can see how it's starting to come along, where we've come from, just some boxes placed on top of a grid, to adding in some hierarchy in our text, to adding in, different elements, changing their colors with, varying shades of grayscale. You can get a good idea of how this website is going to function based on this wireframe. All right, so I want to open up or go into the wireframe I've created. So this is a wireframe that I have created for my website, and this is something that you would follow. What I like to do is I like to think about where the fold in the page is going to be, and what the fold is what we see. Let me go to CNN or something.com. What we see above the fold is basically before we start to scroll down. So you almost have to think about it in the way of like a newspaper folded in half, and that's where that comes from, is like what was on the front page, the top of the front page, before you flip the paper over. So now it's before you have to scroll to the bottom of the website. So that's what you want to think about. And the fold is usually around 800 pixels down. So you can set up your InDesign or your Illustrator file, starting at 800 pixels. And you may notice, obviously you're going to have information that goes below the fold, but drop yourself a line and a little, a bar, and name it. Label things on your wireframe. So for my page, I've labeled my page homepage, and you need to do a wireframe for all 4 pages of your website. So I just want to make that clear. So your wireframe should have at least 4 pages. So I made the web page, my wireframe for my homepage, and I have my links for my navigation. I'm going to have one big hero image in the center of the page, at the top of the page, and I'm also going to have some hero text that goes underneath this image. So I have that selected. So this text probably doesn't need to show up, at 100% black. I can change this text to be maybe 60% gray. And then I'm going to have a sidebar right here with information in it, text in it. So I can change that to the same grayscale as my other text. And then I'm also going to have my main image right here and my main content. So I'm going to change that to the 60% as well. So I'm starting to build up a hierarchy in my site. And then I'm going to have a footer at the bottom with some copyright information. And then I'm going to have social media icons. So these are my squares that I've created to show my social media icons, because I'm not adding logos at this point. So I've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest that'll run on the bottom of my page. Here's a thought as well. Try and create, oh, I thought this was the one that I had completely finished, apparently not. Try and, find one layout that works for you. And if you can, replicate that layout across your pages. It'll make your life a lot easier. Like my, all right, so I'm just going to copy this forward, and I'm going to paste it on my second page, and this would be my about page. The thing I know I'm going to change about my about page is I'm not going to have a hero image and hero text on that page, so I'm going to delete that above the fold, and I'm going to, however, have a main image and a sidebar. So that content will probably carry all the way down my page. It's just going to be a little bit different on this page. However, on my dining page, whoops, there we go. On my dining page, I am going to have a similar layout. So on my dining page, I am going to have a hero image and some hero text. And I'm probably going to have a main image and some sidebar text as well. Then on my contact page, I'm not going to have this hero image or text. I'm going to have a form. So I'm not even going to have this main image. I'm going to have some main content, so contact text. That's probably honestly going to be about the width of my sidebar, so I can kind of lose this part. So right here where it says aside, oops, there we go, I can say contact information. There we go. And over here, I might have my form. So, I'd probably draw some boxes showing this as a form with, a submit button and maybe the reset button, because I need to have 2 buttons on my form. I would have enough lines to show that is my form. All right, so that's kind of that's how to put together your wireframe. And I'm going to share these my slides with you when I post the video, so that way you guys can go in, you'll see all the links, you'll be able to really read up on everything. I know it's kind of a lot just to watch in one live session, so I always try to share the links to my slides with you guys. It's great information. I put it all together. I think you should definitely read it. All right, so next what you need to do is you need to come up with a concept for your website. So I'm going to show you my concept that I have come up with for my website. You may want to work on your concept before you work on your wireframe and your sitemap. I just really wanted to make sure I got that wireframe demo in, that we got into, Dreamweaver for a second, just to make that box model, all of that information. But in all honesty, you're probably going to want to write up your concept, because how are you going to know what to wireframe if you haven't thought out your site yet? The best tool to write up a concept is to use Microsoft Word. If you don't have Microsoft Word, use Google Docs. It's the same thing as Word. It's going to catch your spelling and your grammatical errors in a way that that InDesign is not going to catch them for you. What you're going to want to do is include the name of the company, your name, and your contact information. And you're going to want to write 1 to 2 paragraphs describing what you envision as the concept for this website. and then save it. So let me show you mine. So on my title page, I put in my logo for my website because I'm going to design a website on Martha's Vineyard. This, for my example to you, this mod. It's a little bit different than what your requirements are, and that's just because, you know, it's easier. I never want to do something like a florist shop and then somebody follows along exactly with my florist shop. So I'm going to do a travel to Martha's Vineyard type website. So I put my name at the underneath my logo and Martha's Vineyard website for APP 242 Web Design Principles. Then what I've created is, I also, put my name up in the header, and I followed a template. Microsoft has a lot of really good layouts already for you that have like a table of contents, everything else all set up for you. And I added in a table of contents for my second page. So on page 3, I'll discuss my home page. On page 4, my about page. On page 5, my dining page. And on page 6, my contact page. So I've just kind of got some Lorem Ipsum text here, but, I have it set up with my home page, a little bit of a write-up, my about page, a little bit of a write-up, dining page, a little bit of a write-up, so on and so forth. And then when it's done, I can save it. And what I can also do is save it as an Adobe PDF. Because you need to submit one PDF file. So there's 2 ways that you can do this. And we'll go over that in a second. But we should probably take a look at sitemaps real quick. So again, assignment number 1 is the wireframe and then the sitemap. Now, what is a sitemap? I know we're getting a little close on time. A sitemap is, in essence, the family tree of your website. So the top of your website will always be your home page, and then any links off of that page will be there. But you'll notice when you download your the sitemap tool, it's a little bit different than this. It's going to be a little bit less complex. What you download. So this, this page, your home page, I'm going to harp on this. When you are creating your website, your home page will always be named index.html. You can name it home in your sitemap. But remember, when you save your file, it will always be lowercase I index.html. So the sitemap is a visual file organization of your website. The level of complexity in the sitemap really depends on the level of complexity of your web page that you're designing. Chances are good your sitemap is going to look like mine with 4 pages, and then I sometimes like to do a thank you page that loads after my users submit my form. But really, you only need to have 4 pages. And I'll say this, if this is your first time coding, don't overextend yourself. Stick with the 4 pages. If you get done and all of a sudden you want to add in extra pages because you have added time, have at it. I am all about that. But, definitely realize how much work, there is for this course, and just try to manage yourself. Don't overextend yourself. Don't try to design a 10-page website if you've never designed a website before. If I see a very complex sitemap from you, don't be surprised, and don't take it the wrong way if I email you and I ask you if you have any experience in Dreamweaver. It's just that I don't want you to get overwhelmed. So I just want to make sure that I tell you that. So, the sitemap is pretty quick to make. It's pretty expressive, and it's very easy to change. People have all sorts of methods for building sitemap diagrams. So whatever your tool, the diagram is a useful way to demonstrate hierarchy, and it clearly shows the relationship between the pages and tells you where your website might be too deep or it might be too shallow. So it's there to visually explain the relationship between the pages on the pages on the website. I'm losing my voice now, or my vocabulary, one of the two. Nothing better illustrates the hierarchy of a website better than a diagram with lines and arrows, literally showing you where things go. Clients naturally understand a sitemap. The thing that's bad about it is the actual relationship between the pages can be hard to grasp. So what looks good on a chart might not end up working well on a website. And after you design the sitemap diagram, it pretty much becomes a dead document right away. You just end up following it, and that's the end. So a sitemap is a quick way to sketch navigation and hierarchy. Just don't try to cram in other bits of information that don't fit. So again, your sitemap, you can follow the sitemap template that you can download right from the assignment page. Open it up in Illustrator. There will be a section that you need to follow up here that tells you notes, and they'll tell you to put your name up here. It's going to be a paragraph. Make sure you read that paragraph and understand what it says. And then there are items that you can put, little icons. So if you were going to have an interactive IU element on one of your pages, like a slideshow or something, you can add that. If you're going to have a form, which you need to have a form, so I should definitely see this form icon on all of your sitemaps. And then there's a notes section. So down here, I'm going to say my notes section just to give you an idea. For my homepage, my initial design will include information and images of Martha's Vineyard in an attempt to attract tourists to the island. My site will be a 2-column design with collapsible columns when the pages become smaller on tablets and cell phones, because I'm thinking of my site and how it needs to be responsive to different screen sizes. The About page will contain text to tell potential visitors where to go, what to do, how to get there. The Dining page will contain top restaurants on the island, as well as featured restaurants and images of food. The Contact page will have a form that is PHP driven, and it will, because we have a PHP file that we're going to be using in week 4 for that form, to tell potential clients to fill out to request more information. And then I will have a thank you page, and you'll notice I have it offset off of my contact page. So it's visually offset over here, and it's visually offset in my notes section. This page will thank users for filling out my form and letting them know that I will respond in a timely manner. All right, so after I complete that, I would save this as a PDF file and as an Illustrator file, just so I have both versions of it. And what I might do is, there's 2 ways that you can put this together. The simplest way is probably to make a PDF of your wireframe, make a PDF of your Microsoft Word document, and then make a PDF of your Illustrator file, and go into Acrobat and do a create, combine files into a single PDF. And what you can do is, just in your Finder, you can grab each of the 3 files. I might not have, I don't think I saved that one, but we'll see what happens. Oh, all right, that works. And so I have my my PDF first. Oh, this is the entire assignment. Hold on. I already had created that. I don't know if you can drag in InDesign. Nope, you can't. Sometimes they'll let you drag in a doc file. Add. Come on. Add files. There we go. All right. So it's letting me drag in a doc file. That's great. That helps. One less step. Then I need to drag in my sitemap, which now it won't let me drag in for some reason. All right. It'll be easiest if you have, I think you need to have all the same types of files. So what I would do is I would drag in, I would save everything as a PDF and drag that in. And then you can rearrange them in order, and all you have to do is combine them to make one PDF. Let me just make a quick file. Export. There we go. Export that as a PDF. Save. Oh, I don't need to save that right now. Open this up. I'll save this as a PDF. There we go. Save PDF. And not my concept, and save that as a PDF. All right, awesome. All right, so now I have my 3 PDF files. I do apologize. I thought I had already saved them as I thought I had them saved as PDF files from the last time I taught the class, but I think I did it live. All right, so I can do file, create, combine files into a single PDF. And I'll go into that new folder, and I can drag my concept in, which for some reason dragged in my sitemap. I think I need to restart my Acrobat, because clearly none of that is what I just dragged in. Oh my goodness. It might not have been me. I thought it was me. I think it's my Acrobat. This is what I mean. Sometimes when you download a new version, although I don't think it's a new version of Acrobat, sometimes crazy things happen. But also crazy things will always happen when I'm doing something live. That's the way it is. Let's try this one more time. Come on. All right, concept, there we go. Wireframe, there we go. Sitemap, all right. And if you accidentally put them out of order, all you need to do is you can just kind of like, you know, move them, see with the little arrow, or grab it and move it side to side. You can expand it to see what's in there. If you need to delete out pages, like I brought the wrong one in, so I can just delete out those pages. I can look and see, make sure that there aren't any blank pages in there. And then all I need to do is select all 3, or at least you used to have to do it that way. It might just combine them on their own, and hit combine. And it's going to name it binder number 1. Just double check that everything looks correct, which it does. And you can do a file, save as, and choose to put it where you want it to go. I like to keep everything like, you know, APP 242, Web Design Principles, week 1, my assignment and wireframe and everything together, and then look at what it needs to be called in the assignment. So let's look at the naming convention, because remember, that's worth 6 points. And it's right here down at the bottom. So I'm going to copy that. And assignment first, last name. So I'm going to do, you can do your first initial. So I'm going to do smcnamara.pdf and save it. And then that's ready to go. So that's how you put together your first assignment for this week. And you can see it's great, especially when there are multiple page sizes. You can also put it together in InDesign, but this might just be the easiest way because you're in 3 different programs. Just save it as a PDF and just combine those 3 PDFs. I think that that'll probably be the easiest way for you to put it together. So we don't have a lot of time to do this, but I'm just going to show you really quick, just a quick look at the last 20 years of web design. I always like to show people this just so you can see how far we have come. And you can take more time to look at all of the examples when I post the slideshow, because I know we're already like 3 minutes over at this point. So I do appreciate you sticking it out. So when we first, started, this is the very first website. And if you, if you go in, you can actually still see this website if you go to the URL for it. This is what websites look like. The first time one was designed, it was just straight up code. And I believe it was the early 90s. I want to say 1992, but I could be wrong when this website was created. So you can see how far we have come. Then we had the Middle Ages of design. This always kills me. This is the actual Apple homepage from 1997. And that's the year I graduated from high school. So, when I was looking at a computer, my very first Apple computer, and, to go off to college with, that I was going to beg and plead with my grandmother to please buy for me, which she did because she was awesome. She bought me my first Mac when I went to school for graphic design. This is the website that I navigated to look at. And it's kind of crazy when you think of how crisp and clean, Apple's website is now. I mean, if we go to apple.com now, it's like night and day from, what it used to from this. It's so funny to see the difference. Yeah, right? Aw, so cute and young. Then we had the Renaissance, which was what I call our animated GIF phase, where you can probably, if you are old enough, can picture exactly what this website probably looked like. And I'm sure if you ran your cursor over these buttons, they probably spun and changed color, and it was probably two different images that had to preload, and it probably took forever for this website to load. Because that was back in the day of, tiled background images, which we can still use now. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just they're a little bit more subtle these days. 3D buttons, splash pages. It looked cool. We didn't care that it took forever to load, whatever. That's what our website was going to look like. It was the mid-90s. Then we realized, in the early 2000s, that CSS was the way to go. And that was matched with our HTML, and all of the, color, pictures, all of the design elements went into the CSS of our pages, and our pages could load so much quicker because of that. Also, our design tended to get a little bit cleaner during that phase. Next, what we had was what they call the Industrial Revolution, and this was kind of the birth of Web 2.0. And there was a lot of Flash videos and slideshows that occurred during this time. But as you know, people are moving away from Flash, and there is a big reason for that. What killed Adobe Flash? What do you think is the there's two things. They're both very similar that were pretty much the end of Adobe Flash. Well, it does take forever, but I'm thinking of two, I'm trying not to use the word, two devices. I know, right? Two devices that do not load Flash, and lots of people have these devices, and therefore Adobe got rid of Flash and actually Animate took its place. Smartphones, yes, it was actually the iPhone and the iPad, because the Apple iOS does not support Flash, and they said from the get-go that they were not going to support Flash. And Adobe was like, well, we'll see how this goes. Yeah, right. Like, nobody's going to buy your phone. But guess what? Everybody did buy the phone. And Adobe was the one that kind of came down on them to come up with a different solution, which is actually Adobe Animate now, which runs off of the HTML5 platform. And then today, 2 decades after the publication of the first website, web design is definitely, has a different aesthetic to it. Yeah, exactly, Kay. Design is so much cleaner. We're thinking about the user experience. We have things such as, infinite scrolling, single page design. There's just so much, that has changed since, the very first text-based only website that was created. So thank you again for staying late today. I'm going to end up sharing these slides with you, and all of the links that I discussed will be in these slides. I'll also share the HTML visual image with you, and I'm going to try to post, see if I can come up with some files for tomorrow so you guys can download them before the live session to work along with. So if you want to put that app on your tablet or your smartphone so you can listen and then work along, I think that that'll be great. And I'll also post Misty's information as well. Just kind of give me a couple of hours today to kind of compile everything. But thank you again for being able to make it and for sticking it out, Kay. And I hope to see you tomorrow. And to everyone else, I hope to see you tomorrow as well. All right, have a great day.